Hello, everyone, and welcome to IBA Stage in this new season starting this September. And we have the absolute pleasure to start with one of the most interesting biennials that took place earlier on this year in late spring. And we have with us Ayşegül Sönmez from the Mardin Biennial. Mardin Biennial took place between May and June 2022, and it was its fifth edition, titled The Promise of Grass. And I would like to briefly introduce Ayşegül, after which I will give some basic house rules, and then we can start with the presentation. So Ayşegül Sönmez was born in Istanbul and is the founder of Sanat Atak, which is the first online platform for arts and culture in Turkey, which is also an ENNC associate member. Sanat Atak has published so far 5 books, 2 of which in 2 or more languages. And she was also involved in the organization of a number of cultural events over the past years, both here in Istanbul and in Turkey, more broadly speaking. She was president of ICA Turkey for 2 years and is acting chief consultant of the Mardin Biennial, as well as a theorist of the second Mardin Biennial, which took place in 2012. Thank you for joining us, Ayşegül. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Before giving you the word, I just want to give a few house rules, which are always useful to keep the conversation going flawlessly. And first of all, I want to remind you that the event is being recorded and also currently streamed through our social media outlets. So also let me take a minute to welcome those that are following us through our YouTube channel, as well as our Facebook page. As a general rule, if you wish to speak, you can, and you're present in the Zoom, please raise your hands through the function or make yourself noticeable in the chat. In the chat, you can also type any questions while the presentation is going, and we will catch up on them afterwards. And though you're welcome, apologies. Although you're welcome and encouraged to keep your camera on, please make sure to mute your mic when you're speaking. When you're not speaking, apologies. We will make sure that you're unmuted in case you have a question. And if you have any further questions and comments, please always use or always feel free to use our info@biennialassociation.org for matters that regards this particular event or any other program of the International Biennial Association. Thank you for the patience for listening through all of these rules. And now I would like to, with absolute pleasure, give the word to Ayşegül to walk us through what happened in Mardin between May and June this year. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Christian. It is my pleasure to join this session and to talk about Mardin Biennial, because it's a very unique form, I think, among what we understand from a biennial. Biennial is a form in this geography, like in Turkey, which was understood as a tool to get westernized, as a tool to bring modernity to where it is built, or to where it was, built as a fiction. So this fiction, since the Istanbul Biennial, when I was having this age of, the first one, I was around 10, I think. So this notion of what a biennial can bring to a town, to a country, to a city, to a neighborhood, is really, chaotic and different than I think it changed as a modernity to from city to city, from country to country. So I think here, biennials for many years, something that brought modernity, something that brought what is going on in West, you know, what kind of art has been made, what kind of art we should be watching. So, but Mardin as a form, Mardin as a biennial is unique in its fiction, how it was formed, because it was not something that we thought from the centers, like from Istanbul, that we decided to realize, let's go to the southeast of Turkey, let's go to this touristic city and make a biennial. No, it was not like this for the Mardin Biennial story. It was something, it was an action coming from southeast, people who were born in Mardin, who were already in the cultural activity, who has already formed association for cinema to watch international films. So it was Mardin Cinema Association, which started all the things, which started all the things that are necessary to realize a biennial. So it was, I think, as a critic, as a writer from Istanbul, I think it's very important for me. It's a very important drive, and it's a very important notion that Mardin Biennial has. And it's been, we can distinguish Mardin Biennial from other biennials around Anatolia since then, because it is an expectation, it is an action, not an expectation. It is an action from Mardin in itself. And Hakan Irmak, the director of Mardin Biennial, is born and raised in Mardin, Kızıltepe village. So this, all the artists, all the creative people are coming from Kızıltepe, this village. It's very also interesting to me. And this village has really raised a lot of cultural contributors, still producing a lot of contributors for the Mardin Biennial as well. All these young people who are working, collaborators, artists are always born there. And Mardin as a city is a touristic one. So it creates, there is a crisis. I cannot see you, Christian. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm just
Okay.
behind the scenes.
Okay. When I don't see you, I don't feel like everything is going well. So everything is going well?
All good, all good.
Okay. And so it's like a monologue when I don't see anybody, but I will try my best. Anyway, so to understand what this edition means and want to do, I need to talk about this uniqueness, this fiction of Mardin Biennial, how it was, born. So this happened like this. This is the 5th edition, but we postponed it because of the pandemic. So it's been more than a decade that the Mardin Biennial is going on, and with the demand of the Mardin people, with the demand of the local people. It's not a group of people from Istanbul or Ankara went there and formed a biennial. No, this was not the way it was. So, for example, my contribution to the second one also was interesting than the other biennial forms, because I was the theorist. I was the conceptual frame writer of the biennial, but I was not the curator for the second biennial. So we really have been thinking of how how should a biennial be formed, in what ways it should be distinguished, in what ways it should be innovative, and in what ways it would be site-specific, Mardin-specific. I think it is very important. Everybody nowadays is thinking of how a biennial should expand itself, but a biennial also is a big show. It's a big arts exhibition. It should also adjust itself into the specificness of the city, the geography that it has been built, it has been formed. So, for example, nowadays we are having Istanbul Biennial in different venues, and Istanbul is chaotic. It's very difficult to move from one place to the other place. So it's you have for us as a consultant for Mardin Biennial, it was very important to be thinking with the curator and with the team. It should be Mardin specific. And when we look at Mardin, it is a touristic town. It has always visitors from down to sunset. It's always many people, thousands of people passing in the same street, and they're trying to capture every historic sense of the city. So you are in a city where there are lots of tourists, gays, that want to label you as a historic non-living organism. So we really, since for 10 years and 12 years, I've been working with the team. So we always had this precaution. We always have this, we always have to think about these biennial as an exhibition form, not to be captured by the touristic gaze, but by the contemporary gaze. We don't want to be like a stone to be captured forever, but we want to be living. We want to do an exhibition which is living and which is with very in multicultural levels, not like only function as a touristic matter, touristic ruin. So you can see some numbers. How many for this edition? You can see on the screen there are 44 artists, and there were 28 of them was female artists, and male artists are 16. So more women artists were in the last edition by Adwait Singh. And we had approximately 62 artworks, as you can see, and 5 performances and 4 collaborative works and 9 parallel shows to the biennial. And you can, yes, you can see which country we matter. Do we matter where we come from in contemporary art? It's a question full of crisis. It's a question we care because where Mardin is, and if we think about the last edition, it was very difficult to realize according to the geographical locations, because our curator was based in New Delhi in India, and our team is in Mardin. Our one director of the other director of Mardin Biennial, Döne Otyam, is from Ankara. So I live in Istanbul. So, and there is this pandemic, and we were like, we really cared where people as artists were coming from to realize the biennial. It was something physically challenging, not psychologically maybe, but or sociologically, but physically it was very important, very difficult to cope with the artists before the biennial coming to the city and having impressions, having collaborations with the local people, local artists, local venues, and then realize work. So this was something we always cared to do, we always need to do, but under the umbrella, under the dark and gloomy and melancholic umbrella of the pandemic, it was really challenging to realize an international biennial, international art show. And also we cared about the travels, and some lockdowns were always changing the places of the lockdowns. For example, in Istanbul we were free, but in Mardin they were not. The COVID graphics were changing, and they were restricting us to get mobilized, But we really cared, artists coming from their hubs to Mardin as a hub, and to realize, to think site specifically, Mardin specifically. So there are two layers. Always we care to be site specific, yes, to the venues where the exhibition will be held, but also to Mardin specific, because Mardin in one level is a touristic city, but in other levels it is sociologically, psychologically, it is a city also breathing. It's not stopped in the way that it is looking like. It's not historic as it looks like. So you can have the venues. Now you can see the venues of the biennial. So they were very close to each other. This decision we made this year, especially for this edition, we canceled the venues which are far away to the city center, to the historic center. So we stayed in the historic center, but we were always moving, like the tourists, always moving in the city center. So the biennial artists, the biennial audience, biennial viewers were mixing with the touristic viewers, and they were having this hybridness of the artworks that we displayed in this edition. So you see how many visitors we had. We had 2,025, and we have newcomers, 13,287. I'm very bad with numbers. So we really reached out in social media, 1,200,000 people. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Social media was not quite active until pandemic. This edition also, we felt that we are connected through social media. Even people couldn't make it to the biennial, for example. We felt very connected because of the team we have, the promise of the grass, because of the ecological resonance of the team. We were really connecting through social media with new viewers, with artists all around the world. This was something very important that we felt very connected in this edition. So this is the German headquarters, one of the big venues, the center venues of the Mardin Biennial that you see, and it is from the opening of the 5th edition of the Mardin Biennial. This year explored the possibility for a mystical cosmopolitics or a social ecology. What is a social ecology? It can be a literal rise in the sea level. Also, it can be a 94.5 million years old fossil. It is a visionary proposition that Adwait Singh did under the globalized disposition that we are facing recently. And, it's it's the expansion of capitalist enclosure made the curator based and living in New Delhi think of what is the pervasive phenomenon of gated societies, and what are their resistance? What can be the resistance to these oppression of the capitalistic encroachments over people's rights and resources, and the rising multitudes that are left dispossessed? And this feeling, the notion of dispossessed, who is dispossessed and from what it has been dispossessed? We are all dispossessed from oxygen, from our own water. And, this was a problem that seemed to form the idea of the promise of the grass in the 5th edition. If the hegemonic tendencies of capitalism are to blame for poisoning the land, then how are we going to stand our voice and make our speech to be visible and to be audible against this? So there might be a promise of the grass. Why grass? The grass because grows everywhere. The grass, I think, is a resilient form of how we face also pandemic, how we face also this position, how we faced, for example, the canal project, how I faced canal project that the government wants to do. You know, of course, I also, all the trees, me, myself, my oxygen will be coming from this land, from this after canal project. This I will also feel dispossessed. So this possession is also not belonging to migrants, not belonging only to specific groups in exile. This is a problem for all of us. This possession. So grass comes at that time. Grass which is resilient, which is strong enough to grow even in the concrete, even in the city, even in your balcony, in your small soil accumulation. It grows. It will grow. So this is a symbol. Grass is a symbol of how we can survive, and we can believe, even we are dispossessed, we can believe to survive. The grass is a great symbol, and I would like to thank to Adwait for this beautiful symbol, because it's a very strong and very simple symbol for all of us who want to survive and did survive actually after pandemic. So I found it very brilliant to have this very simple metaphor, very simple symbol, allegory. You can call the grass all of them. It works in all levels of how to be against the sovereignty, how we can cope, and we can have hope while we are coping, as now people Iran are doing. We have this grass. So hope, it's a hope. It's an allegory. It works also as a metaphor. So I would like to go on also some points that this concept, the 5th edition, underlines. For example, Sufic lines of love. Sufic lines of love. What should we understand? This emphasis on the Sufic ones. It is a de-individuation and deteriorization of the self. We can lose some parts, but we are integrated more in the subject. And we are the subject, and what we can integrate it into can be a subject too. So it can be a holistic way of experience, while you experience it fragmentedly. So fragments that form the totality is also important. Even we are fragmented, even we are organless, or even we lose some parts of our integrity, some parts of our land, some parts of our water, some parts of our oxygen, we can survive, and we can survive, and we can be individual. We can be existentially free while we lose some parts of our integrity. This is very important, I think, of this 5th edition, and you can see you can see and sense it. For example, we have this beautiful work, site-specific work from Raki Peswani. I would like to send my all gratefulness and love to her, to this beautiful artist. And she really, she's from Iran, and she did the most poetic work of the fifth edition, and it was called, it has a beautiful name, Love, Labor, and Loss. So this poeticness, yes, you can see her work now, Peswani, yes, and this was very beautiful, and it has new meanings now. That's what I like about exhibitions, not only biennials, good shows, big shows. Works have now, the works are not solid, the works are not like stones, but they are like organisms. In the beginning of the talk, I told you, so they are living. So this work has new meanings while the protesters are trying to liberate, and they have asymmetric violence. And I stand, and we stand with the protesters and the woman in Iran. So this has very new meanings while the biennial passed away already, but the work is living in our imaginary, in our minds. And I remember, and I am calling this work for this moment, especially with you right now, as a homage and as a call to end violence, asymmetric violence in Iran at the moment. So not only her works was poetically named, also there was another work called Only the Birds Flying from the Highest Can Shatter the Window. So these works have this themselves has meaningful, and this also this also has new meanings now. And this was a woman artist who passed away, and the last months of her stay in the world, she collaborated with an artist, with a craftsman in Mardin. She came to Mardin. She was sick, but she came to Mardin, and she worked with a craftsman from Mardin, and she made these masks. She made these figures in Mardin with a lot of hair. So this is also one of the works that has new meanings, which are due to the new political and social change around Middle East. So I really want to emphasize her, Selma Gürbüz. I would like to also send my homage to her brilliant, specifically made in Mardin works, Mardin Biennial. So it's also something we really always desire to be able to, the artists, we want artists to be able to spend a lot of time in Mardin and create works with collaborations from the local artists and also craftsmen and women of the town. So this was done just before she passed away. So it's very sad, and also contribution to her works. What we understand from new ecologies, and we are coping with all these artworks. We are coping with the idea. We are trying to find a definition for a new ecology. But what is this new ecology? I would like to say this is these new ecologies are more cosmopolitical than ever, and empathetic and egalitarian. So this is a visionary proposition. So this visionary proposition is a proposition when all the artists for the 5th edition propose for a new ecology, that they believe. So I find as a writer, this 5th edition to be a tent, a simple tent that is not a camping tent, that is not resistant to the climate, to the sun, to the to the strong storm, to the tourism, to the touristic gaze, or stretch. It is a tent that immersing the weaver in an uninterrupted, intermittent, and thoughtful relationship with the city. So this was also a very special work, and the artist also cooked for us. And it is coming. This place was created a circular place that the artist also cooked and distributed food, and it was also meaningful as a concept that we see what we understand from gift economy. Gift economy is yes, we use gift economies, but really to be in exchange culturally, you really have to think what is a gift and whose gift is it. And if we create an economy through gifts, then we can really resist to the economy of the big companies and trust to Amazon and its values and all these consuming big companies. We can resist if we believe in the gift economy system, which is coming from thousands of years as a tradition in this land. So you see the circular form of this installation, and how it is also bringing a vibe to the viewer in the exhibition venue called Develi Han. There used to be camels staying over in this place, so the scale, you can understand, is also shaped for us. In the we think of camels stopping and chilling there, so it was also another imaginary that the space's name was giving us. And this also, we can talk about this German headquarters, and this work by the it's a flag by EB5. It is hung like a flag on the facade of the German headquarters. But it was also about occupation, not in Germany. It's an occupied house in Germany. But what do we understand from this flag? That we biennial makers also occupy venues, occupy the city for art in certain times. So this flag also makes me think of how we really deal as biennial makers, as theorists about biennial conceptual frames. Which place are we occupying? Whose place is this? And also this place, what kind of image does this place have? So I love this flag, because when it was hung, we really thought, as the team, we thought of what this really is, what new meanings can it have, and what is this occupied house in somewhere in Europe has got anything to do with this building? But then the idea also came through this flag to the notion of occupying a place which doesn't belong to you. You are always again dealing with the idea of the dispossession, feeling the feeling of dispossessed, the feeling of immigrancy, the feelings of a lot of connotations come after this flag was hung on the facade of the German headquarters. Can you go to Fatoş İrvan? We used this space for the first time. We called it the Design Center. It was the first time that we are using this venue, and Fatoş İrvan built this beautiful safety net in this building. This is a very site-specific, Mardin-specific work again. Fatoş İrvan stayed in the prison of Diyarbakir. And while she was imprisoned, she collected hairs from her friends sharing the same prison with her. So she collected their hair. So with this hair, she formed the safety net and also formed this balls. Yes, hair balls. So this also, like Selma and Paswani, has new connotations for liberty, for freedom of speech, of the body, and for women, also for this geography. So it has also new connotations. I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to speak up and also rethink of the works that we already displayed again for the first time, another time, and with new symbols and images and social things going on in my mind. So it's a pleasure for me now. And Fatoş İrvan made this really very unique and touching social, political, and also psychoanalytical work for the Mardin Biennial. It's called Safety Net. And you know, although hail and frost can defeat us, our clasped arms will not be separated from each other. You know, this song was coming from the downstairs of this building. Fatoş's net was on the ground floor, and down there was this song coming up of the work that belongs to the Namdo Lamo, one of the Tibetan nuns who was imprisoned for 12 years for breaking through the prison walls of the songs they sang in their cells. She was living in Belgium with a never-ending emptiness inside, and the song that they were singing, all these nuns, Tibetan nuns that were imprisoned, they were singing this song. They sang this song, the lyrics were like this: although hail and frost can defeat us, our clasped arms will not be separated from each other. This was, according to me, the beautiful moment, was one of the beautiful moments of the Mardin 5th edition. This song you can hear singing in the video, and this was coming from downstairs and reaching out the hair net that was made in prison by Fatoş İrvan. So what is liberty? What is inside? What is outside? It is really the questions, and the answers are never ending, always changing ones due to where you really look and stay. This was really a touching moment for me. And I would like to go on with Sasha. Let's talk about Sasha as well. It was in the heart of the Mardin Biennial 5th edition. This work is so meaningful. It is so meaningful. It is so, also it has action inside. It belongs to a campaign that Sasha Huber took in 2 years ago. And it was really a pleasure for all of us involved in the Mardin Biennial team to welcome this work. It is really something that we all need to confront a cultural, a political, it has also a cultural political resolvement. So I like the story. I like the action inside the campaign. This Sasha Huber in 2015 took this shaman Jeff Mahulka and took this jade carving shaman Jeff Mahulka, and they took a journey to the New Zealand's lands, all these Icelands. And these Icelands once was named by a racist scientist named Louis Agassiz. This racist scientist man, Louis Agassiz, was also an inventor, also a discovery man. So while he was a scientist discovering all these Icelands in New Zealand, he was giving his name to these. He was baptizing the common lands that belongs to the people of New Zealand. That belongs to the common lands, common Icelands that belong to everyone that belongs to the earth. But he was naming his name to all these Icelands, Agassiz, and this Agassiz, this racist scientist, believed that the brain of black people, for example, is smaller than a white people. So this immature, chauvinistic, racist guy, but a scientist. So Sasha Huber wanted to erase this and tried to form a campaign. So during this campaign, everybody was signing this campaign to get rid of the name of the Icelands, get rid of this Agassi names of the Icelands, and have their original names from their ancestors, coming from their ancestors. So it's very meaningful for me because I believe, as a writer, not only a critic, but as a writer, that we also, for my country, we also need to confront, and we really need to confront, and we really need to culturally think of whose heritage we are having and what are these heritages, culturally, fossils, minerals, buildings, air, water. These are all heritage that we are inheriting, but what are we inheriting, and whose heritage is this? These are very important questions that I think Fifth Mardin Biennial asks, and also Istanbul Biennial is also like a heritage. If I think the Fifth Mardin Biennial creates a heritage that as a flag, and this flag is being carried by the questions that Istanbul Biennial is asking nowadays, 17th edition. So it's the question, I will talk about Gülsün also, but it's important. I would like to go on to talk about the erasement of Agassi's name through these Icelands. And, this shaman that the artist Sasha Huber took to this land, and they started to sing a song. You can hear the song. You can watch them, how they rebaptized the Icelands. And, in their language, they say, Poitini Kai Tahu is my tribe. The breath of life. Ayatok is my precious treasure. Kati Mahaki is my sub-tribe. Tutoko is my ancestral cave. Makahaoyo is my river. Uru'ao is my kano. Rakahihutu is my chief. So, they're having their real names, organically, ancestral names, the heritage is being inheriting by the shamanic ritual to the point, to the origin point. And it's a very sentimental and sociological point that the 5th edition was displaying, was having us to experience and want the same thing, this confrontation for ourselves, for our culture too. It's a promise too. It's a promise of the grass, the promise of the grass, also a promise of the, we have to keep to the heritage that we are, to the heritage that we are inheriting. So it is the promise of the grass that we really want to keep. It's a promise of a biennial that we really want to keep going to keep. We can also talk about a little bit about Gülsün Kara Mustafa as well. Gülsün Kara Mustafa is a very established contemporary artist, woman artist that is based in Istanbul, filmmaker. She does installations, and for Mardin, she did this installation especially for Mardin, specifically for Mardin, and specifically for this venue in German headquarters. This, I think, was one of the works that really relates to the touristic dimension, touristic experience of all we have while we are gazing to the biennial, while we are experiencing the biennial. Because in Mardin, you have always those moments, full of gold, full of Shahmeran as a cult figure, a woman, a snake at the same time, the lie and the truth. What is truth? You always think of yourself. If due to the story of the Shahmeran, you always think of what is true, what is the truth, and what is illusion. So in your touristic, while you are a Mardin Biennial viewer, you're also a touristic experience. You also have the touristic experience in the city. So this combines all these experiences, touristic, biennially, and you have this contemporary art experience while you have also the Mardin city experience, full of Jesus, full of painters, clothes, golds, hair, some moments that you cannot get rid of, even you are a biennial professional. Okay, so this was the promise that we want to keep, and we want you to keep up. And I really want to thank you. It was like, to me, Christian, it was like reading the novel again, a novel that you really, contributed as an editor, contributed as a, for example, preface writer. So it was like something that you rewrote. I had this opportunity to rethink of the biennial, what we really did. So I really believe that we started a promise, and I think we really need to keep up this promise through other biennials like the ones we are having now in Istanbul. I think it's very connected in some points in the question that I insisted on asking: whose heritage is this, and who are we inheriting this heritage from? Thank you, Christian.
Thank you, Ayşegül, for the extensive presentation, both of a bit of the history of the Mardin Biennial as well, which I think is important, especially given it's the first time that we have you with us. So it's important for our viewers also to understand the context. In the meantime, maybe we can run the two short videos, and we'll be back afterwards. I will briefly go to the questions that I wrote down while you were talking, and of course, we're ready to receive any others through different channels. And I think the first is more of a general question, which I think is important for those. I mean, you talked about this briefly, but maybe it would be good to elaborate for those that don't know Mardin and the situation generally in Turkey and why it's important that an event such as the Mardin Biennial is happening there. And I refer specifically to the fact that you mentioned that there are different cultures coming together, and it's important that it's a local initiative. And I know this is a very sensitive issue also within the Turkish context and within the Turkish art context in specific. Because Mardin has a particular history, it's a common ground for different cultures that come together, the Kurdish culture, the Turkish one, there was a Jewish population.
A lot of.
Exactly. And I found it very interesting that that as you were talking about some of the works, the biennial is also an occasion for other cultures that are minoritarian in their own country to be displayed. No, you mentioned about the Buddhist monks. You mentioned about the Maori minority in New Zealand and so on. And I would like to ask you a bit more about the relevance of the fact that it is a city with a very specific culture based on minorities that were living there, and how this affected this edition, but more in general, the planning and the making of the Mardin Biennial.
Actually, this notion of universality, I don't want to, I am very cautious about this. I'm very, very careful about this. Like, the nuns, the Tibetan nuns and Fatosh Irvan does not create a universality, does not create something that we can, combine and we say freedom of speech is problematic. No, in every sense, in every city to city, country to country, climate to climate. I mean, not only geography, climate, everything's changed. The experience of modernity changed. The experience of globalization might sound same through Amazon, through Microsoft, but the experience of freedom of speech as a problem does change in city to city, country to country, climate to climate. So I don't want to universalize, but it was, when you make an exhibition, and when you write or when you contribute to an exhibition, when you are a writer, you of course make a puzzle. You of course, I found it very beautiful. I mean, just beautiful, in the sense that these songs were also reaching out the hairs of the prison friends of Fatosh. And the safety net. What is safety? Are we safe? We are not safe. So we don't have, since the beginning of the Mardin Biennial, I'm working with the team, and we never think of Mardin as a quantity or consisting of minorities. Minority we never use. There are majorities and there are individuals. And this biennial with the Sufic lines is also underlines the very existential individual of our times. Our times should not, of course, we believe in community. We believe in action. We believe to speak up for ourselves, for what we believe, but we don't believe in a community. We also still believe to live as an individual, existential individual, and we also ready to compromise one of our, parts. And we can be, this is what's so beautiful about the Adwait's concept and what he got from Sufism. We can compromise one of our parts. We can be a fragment, just like the biota of the Edikara 94 million years ago. And we can collaborate, but we can still find integrity for ourselves to speak up for what we believe. This is very important because we have we really has this oppression, homogenizing our identities, you know, conquering your land, conquering your air, water. This is a global problem. But what I understand from that and how my psychology, my subconscious operates through this, and how I will resist to that is very unique. Every resistance is unique. I don't know if I really reply it, but Mardin Biennial believes in unique resistances, very unique, very site-specific, very personal specific, very curatorial specific, writer specific, artist specific, and we create a not singularity but plurality altogether. Not minors, no, not minorities.
I think that was a good response. To move on to something different, which is something that we talked about in many of the IBA stages that we had until now, given the circumstances, of course, is how you dealt with the limitations in the making of it because of COVID, because of the restrictions that we all were dealing with. And I want to ask you if you can give us a sense, because most of the works really feel very much bound to the place. Some of them are site specific, some of them were pre-existing, but somehow they all feel very much nested in the space in which they were shown. And I can imagine this was an additional challenge for the team, for the artist, and probably also for the curator. If you can give us a bit of a sense of how you worked on this and how you try to overcome.
Thank you for asking this, because we need to address, for this question, we need to address the invisible team. And this team is all from Mardin. They work for hours, sleepless hours, and most of the artists really traveled. Individuality again comes at first glance, because they really took they really believed to come, and they traveled. Traveling is something like, sometimes they ask me here from foreigner press, what do you do? How do you express yourself for liberty? I go to a concert. It was 5 years ago. It was really dangerous to go to a concert in the city, in Istanbul. It was because bombs were exploding. It was really difficult to take the action to go to a simple rock concert. The same during pandemic, some artists really took actions individually. They said, we want to come. We really want to come. Even COVID is going on, but we don't have lockdown at the moment. We are coming. So whoever wanted to come came to Mardin and had the possibility to stay, had the possibility to engage with the local people, artists, and they really found a way to survive. This is a biennial of survivors. Really, I had that show on the TV, but this is really, I think Mardin Biennial, this edition is a survivor edition. And we will always remember it as, courageous people, but a very Hegelian, in the Hegelian sense. They themselves took, as a person, as an individual, they said, because we cannot oblige anyone to come to Mardin. They decided to, we are coming. Okay, then you are welcome. Do you understand what I mean? So it was like, in the sense, it was a very Hegelian actionist survivor mode was on. Yeah.
Maybe linked to this, but I think it goes a bit further, but I think it has a link to what I just asked before and your answer as well, is you mentioned multiple times during the presentation, both in terms of works that you decided to talk about, but also in how you talked about them, that there was a there was a heightened attention, let's say, towards environmental projects or projects that dealt with the environment, and in general, like it felt like a biennial that tried to be working on that aspect of sustainability, let's say, environmentally speaking. I think this was also mirrored, and I got this from how you were discussing some of the works and how they were created. It was also mirrored by the fact that, of course, producing works on site reduces traveling carbon footprint, it reduces material waste and so on. And also, of course, it activates local networks of artisans, of local artists and so on. And I want to ask how much the environmental part and the attention to the environment was also part of the thought of why to involve local artists and local handcrafts.
You know, it's very interesting. We also created for this biennial edition, I need to talk about that, invited. A new project, exhibition project, invited. So we said to Metin, as you are invited, Metin was from our team, Metin, you are invited to invite some artists parallel to the biennial. But there was this beautiful space. And so it was an exhibition, but also I invited the young artists of Mardin and Diyarbakır to bring their portfolios, to bring their works, and we discussed about them. So they were also invited by me, and we really discussed what they want to do, how they deal with video, photography, and we really had 2-day-long sessions. So while we are doing this, it was the first time during this edition, and despite the pandemic, that we have almost 10 solo shows by the local artists in their studio or somewhere that they cleaned and converted into an exhibition space. So I was really proud and enthusiastic about that too. And now in the city of Istanbul, two of them, one of them is Hasan Çelik, is creating a shop. One of them is in a shop, Ferhat Salman. So it's like it is the effect. It is the effect of the Mardin Biennial, you know? It creates symptom of a Mardin Biennial. They couldn't stop, and they converted their grocery. They converted the warehouse, abandoned. They converted their studio into an exhibition place. And when people came for the biennial, a lot of people came, other than the tourists, they came for the biennial especially, and they also had the chance to see these shows. So it was the first time for 12 years, that this happened. So environmentally, I guess, I'm not like a Greenpeace member, you know, and I don't think that exhibitions can save the world. I don't think that they should save the world, but they can ask questions on how we consume, how we can change, also consume our desires, not only plastics. Everybody's talking about plastics, but how we consume plastics, as for me, are as important as how we consume love, how we consume, you know, sun also, and you know, the first day of the biennial, I think it would be a very good reply to you. The first day for the press of day, it was the press day. We had this preview. We were like crazy, and we worked many hours, and we woke up. There was this storm coming from the deserts, and most of our eyes were totally destroyed by the little sands that are coming from the desert. And because of very strong storms, some works were destroyed. We are going with the press to the place, and there are no, some installations were really flying. They were or flew already. So this was the moment that I really cared. It's not a mechanic show, you know. Of course, it is sensitive and fragile to the storm, to the sun. It is part of the exhibition. Even you cannot see the installation, it also becomes something that you have to negotiate through your desires and how you want to consume a biennial, how you want to consume a artwork. Sometimes you cannot reach. Sometimes you have to think. You know, this also has taught me a lot, this version, because since I've been doing this like 12 years, we didn't have these desert storms. Because of the global warming, we start to have them very often. And we normally had them in August, you know, in the beginning of the August, in the end of August. But now they started to happen in May. They start to happen in April. So it was like, you know, but we need to accept all this. It's very good platform for me. All biennial makers, we are not creating a space shift without human. We are humanly working in a human project called biennial. So a storm can destroy all of us, our eyes, our ears. This can happen. We have to know that we can be also fragile, you know. This I learned from Mardin. And this is an environmental issue that taught me a lot.
Absolutely, absolutely. Maybe I can conclude with one last question,
Yes.
which also allows me to do a little our own little plug for the 9th General Assembly, which is coming up the 18th to 22nd of October 2022 in Pristina. Of the International Biennial Association, and we decided to gather around the key question of education and outreach of biennials. And given this focus, I wanted to also ask you, because a biennial is more than just an exhibition of works. There is usually a public program. You mentioned already this program for the local young artists, which I think is definitely a part of this. But also given the situation in Mardin with the tourists that you mentioned, with the fact that it is a very touristic town, I was wondering how you structure a public program around this.
Actually, public program, we ask to the artists what they want to do, and when we come into terms of education, this, for example, is also something that we care. Not to underline the education as a school or as a course, but, you know, making of it and contribute all the local students collaborating for Mardin Biennial, it becomes a school organically. We don't call it an education program. We always discuss about it. We still discuss because we saw that this portfolio invited thing went very well. And I want to go on like this, but we don't want to say like education program, you know, because it doesn't, you know, schools are also should be invisible. Schools should be rebaptized as non-schools, or even we shouldn't call them etymologically school. Because when we say school, it's something else. So we need to change. And with this, we want to go on, maybe collaborate with you, maybe, to realize maybe a curatorial courses, like very specific, because artists, they really are creating their own spaces, but they can, you know, maybe online, they can have some courses online, like curatorial, how you can create your own exhibition for artists, for example, how you can write your own, you know, funding material. You want to apply for a funding, it's very difficult I talked to many people, artists from Mardin. It's for them, if they don't speak English, it's very hard to apply for a funding, for example. It's even hard for me, myself, like to all these fulfill these documents. Maybe there we, with the international structures like you, we may apply and we may create, evolve something like this without calling it education or, but some very skillful, very, practical courses. And I think it is what Mardin needs.
I think that was very clear, and I completely agree. I think we're stuck with calling them educational programs just for the sake of it, but
Okay, then we can announce that we need to collaborate through this, really.
You should, first of all, of course, you're more than invited to come to Pristina, and maybe that could be an occasion to start a conversation.
When is that? When is that?
That will be from the 18th to the 22nd of October this year. So in a little less than a month's time. You can find all the information through our social media, through our website, and not just you, but any other biennial professional at the moment is more than invited to, is more than welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Christian.
Join us. And I want to thank you very much for today. I think it was a great occasion to find out a bit more about Mardin, and I'm glad that even 5 editions late, we got to meet you a bit more closely and give our viewers a bit of an impression of what's happening in Mardin. Thank you very much for today.
Thank you to give me this opportunity to speak up for my team. I would like to thank mostly to Adwait Singh, and I would like to thank Hakan Irmak, the director, also Dönel Otiam, the directrice, the director, and all the team that made Mardin Biennial really come true, all the artists. Thank you so much. And we will be back very soon.
We look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. To the rest of our viewers, I also want to remind you to keep track of all of our news through our newsletter, our social media channels, and of course our website. And we look forward to having many of you with us in Pristina later this year. Thank you very much.